Leyii stared ahead, her gaze nowhere in particular, lost in the haze of grief. Her father's death hadn't been sudden. He'd been sick for a while now, slowly fading despite her desperate efforts. The villagers, once a close-knit community, had all abandoned her, their superstitious fears outweighing any past kindness. Alone, Leyii had been struggling to pay the medicine man, a task that now seemed futile. She was stick-slim and tall, a frame that emphasized her slenderness in a way that made her feel acutely aware of her differences. In a culture where curvy girls were the rave, celebrated for their voluptuous forms, Leyii stuck out like a sore thumb. Even though her face was undeniably stunning, with high cheekbones and luminous eyes, in her own village, she remained the ugly duckling, a solitary figure amidst a chorus of whispers. Her father's funeral went by practically unnoticed, a somber, solitary affair that was quickly overshadowed by the collective excitement gripping the village. The air itself hummed with anticipation. The Prince of the Seven Kingdoms was seeking a wife. The maidens were all giddy, their faces flushed with fantasies of regal luxury, while their mothers pranced about, their arms laden with expensive George wrappers and silks bought from the bustling town market. Amidst this joyous, glittering frenzy, Leyii worked tirelessly in her father's little patch of farm, her slim back bent over the arid earth, trying to raise enough to finally pay the men who had dug her father's grave. The contrast between her quiet desperation and the village's extravagant hope was stark and unforgiving. Leyii slumped against the massive trunk of the mango tree, utterly spent. The whole lay beside her, a testament to her Sisyphean struggle, and the sun's heat made the memory of her father a dull ache. Her head was thrown back, eyes half closed, lost in the weary reverie of survival. A voice, deep and resonant, sliced through her exhaustion. "You did all this by yourself?" She blinked her eyes open, expecting a nosy villager. Instead, she found the most handsome man she had ever seen standing over her. He was strikingly tall, his skin the color of polished ebony and somehow glowing in the fading light. His eyes were luminous, holding a quiet intensity that instantly stole her breath. He offered a warm, genuine smile. "The way this land is tilled, it is the work of a strong heart. I admire your effort." Leyii slowly sat up, dusting the dirt from her simple skirt. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice raspy from lack of use. "My name is Zor. I'm from a neighboring village," he replied, kneeling effortlessly beside her. "I saw you from the path and had to stop. I want to help you. Tilling this soil alone is too much." Leyii instantly shook her head, the ingrained pride and suspicion of the abandoned surfacing. "I thank you for your kind offer, Zor, but no, I manage on my own." He didn't press, merely nodded, respecting the boundary she had quickly erected. "I understand. But if I cannot help today, perhaps I can simply say hello tomorrow." He stood up, towering gracefully over her. "I will return to this spot at the same time. If I see you here, I will check on you. Until then, Leyii." The next few weeks saw Leyii and Zor forge an unlikely bond on the farm. He became a steady presence, his quiet strength a balm to her battered spirit. He listened patiently as she spoke of her father, empathizing with her loss, never shying away from her grief. He worked tirelessly beside her, making the daunting task of cultivating the land feel lighter. One afternoon, as they paused for water, Zor looked at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. "Leyii," he began, "you must attend the maiden dance. The prince will be selecting his bride." She laughed, a short, bitter sound. "What would I possibly be doing there, Zor? I am no beauty. No man has ever sought to marry me. I am not attractive like the other girls, all plump and radiant." Zor stepped closer, his luminous eyes holding hers. "Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, Leyii," he reminded her softly, his gaze lingering on her face. "And you, Leyii, are truly beautiful." His words, spoken with such conviction, chipped away at years of neglect and self-doubt. A warmth spread through her, unfamiliar yet comforting. "I will come," she finally said, a shy smile touching her lips, but only as a spectator. He smiled back, a genuine, hopeful expression. That is enough. On the day of the maiden dance, Leyii dressed with a care she hadn't felt in years. She tied her only good George wrapper, a simple green fabric, intricately around her waist and chest, making the most of its modest pattern. Her hair, usually left unadorned, was painstakingly braided into 4 neat buns, a style she'd seen other girls wear. She added the only piece of jewelry she owned, a simple coral necklace, a relic from her mother, hanging delicately around her neck. She finally looked at her reflection in the chipped shard of a local mirror. A shy smile touched her lips. She may not have the voluptuous curves that the village admired, but she looked good. More than good. She looked hopeful. At the village square, the air thrummed with a vibrant, almost dizzying excitement. Every inch of space was alive with color and sound. The revered local king was already seated on his ceremonial throne, a place of honor beside the majestic king of the 7 kingdoms himself. Leyii, feeling like a shadow, stood amongst the surging crowd, her heart a frantic drumbeat in her chest as she awaited the start of the maiden dance, a potent mix of awe and anxiety churning within her. The dance began, a swirling kaleidoscope of bright fabrics and rhythmic movements, each maiden vying for a glance from royalty. Zor, however, didn't watch the dancers. His luminous eyes scanned the periphery, searching. He found her, a small figure in a simple green wrapper, almost swallowed by the eager spectators. He began to walk towards her, a path opening effortlessly before him. Leyii watched him approach, a bewildered joy blooming in her chest. Then, as he drew closer, she saw the deferential bows, the sudden hushed reverence from those around her. Her heart hammered against her ribs. It clicked into place with a staggering force. The glowing skin, the regal bearing, the luminous eyes. He wasn't just Zor from a neighboring village. He was the crowned prince of the 7 kingdoms. He reached her, his smile gentle, his gaze unwavering. Without a word, he took her hand, his touch sending a jolt through her. Turning to face the stunned multitude, his voice, clear and strong, resonated across the square. "This is the woman I want. This is my chosen bride." The crowd erupted. A collective gasp of disbelief rippled through the square, quickly followed by a cacophony of murmurs and bewildered exclamations. Every eye, filled with shock and confusion, turned to Leyii, the village's ugly duckling, now standing hand in hand with the prince. Later, within the quiet opulence of his palace chambers, Zor turned to Leyii, his expression serious yet tender. The noise of the protesting village was miles away, replaced by the hushed reverence of the royal halls. "Before today, I made sure to observe many of the maidens I was expected to choose from," Zor confessed, his deep voice barely above a whisper. "I wanted to know the women of my kingdom, not just the silks they wore." He took her hand, his thumb stroking her knuckles. "And among them all, it was you, Leyii, who affected me the most. Your strength on the farm, your quiet dignity, the way you cared for your father even when the village turned away. That is the heart I need by mine." Leyii was immediately whisked away, not to be hidden, but to be celebrated in the royal fattening room. It was a sanctuary dedicated entirely to beauty and transformation. For 2 lavish weeks, she was indulged beyond her wildest dreams. Servants bathed her in warm, scented waters, her skin massaged daily with fragrant oils, and her hair lovingly adorned with precious beads and intricate styles. She was fed the richest, most nourishing foods, platters of exotic fruits, succulent meats, and sweet delicacies, ensuring she would embody the ideal of queenly beauty. Meanwhile, the palace buzzed with frenetic energy. Seamstresses totaled over luxurious fabrics, jewelers polished ancient gold, and royal chefs prepared feasts for thousands. It was the most opulent wedding preparation the kingdom had ever witnessed. When the grand day of the royal procession and wedding finally arrived, Leyii emerged, breathtakingly transformed. She appeared visibly fuller, her once slender frame now graced with pronounced curves, celebrated in all the ways her culture admired. She wore the most magnificent, shimmering George wrapper, its vibrant colors woven with threads of pure gold, catching the sun's light with every graceful movement. Beside her, Prince Zor, the splendid in his royal robes, beamed with unbridled pride. Together, they radiated a confidence and joy that silenced every whisper of doubt. To the stunned, envious gazes of the maidens who had once mocked her, Leyii was the picture of regal beauty, a queen in every sense. The celebration that followed was, without contest, the grandest and most joyous event in the history of the Seven Kingdoms, marking not just a union, but the triumph of a true heart. The entire day had been a swirling, glorious blur, yet utterly surreal for Leyii. Even now, sitting on the plush edge of the queen-size bed in their nuptial chamber, a stunningly large room that could swallow her childhood home whole, she still could not quite believe she had married the crown prince. She was dressed in an all-white negligée, the delicate fabric symbolizing the final, most sacred step in the wedding celebrations, the consummation of the marriage, where custom dictated she must prove her purity. She sat motionless, her head bent low, staring intently at her fingers woven together in her lap, wrestling with nervousness and awe. The massive door softly opened. Zor stepped inside, clad only in a simple linen robe, his presence filling the vast space with a quiet intensity. He met her gaze, and his expression softened instantly. He walked toward her, a slow, deliberate pace, and smiled. A genuine, tender smile that chased away the last vestiges of his royal formality. An almost painful ache settled in his chest as he took in his bride. She was breathtaking in her fragile beauty, a luminous vision of white against the dark velvet headboard. He knew the pressure of this moment, the weight of tradition resting on her small shoulders, and his only thought was to cherish and reassure her. Zor approached her not as a prince claiming his bride, but as a man cherishing a fragile flower. He moved with an infinite gentleness, keenly aware of her inexperience and the weight of the moment. Every touch was an inquiry, every gaze a promise of safety. He took his time, whispering soft affirmations, ensuring she felt utterly protected. The beautiful garments of white and purple silk were slowly, tenderly discarded, not in haste, but in a quiet celebration of her form. What followed was far more profound than a mere joining of bodies. Zor adored her wholly. He traced the delicate lines of her slender form, the very curves that her village had once deemed lacking, and loved them with a fierce, quiet reverence. His passion was woven with tenderness and deep respect, a deliberate, slow burn that prioritized her comfort and pleasure above all else. Leyii, who had known only rejection and grief, was overwhelmed by this profound acceptance and consuming love. As he held her, loving her with a completeness she never imagined, silent tears of overwhelming emotion and newfound joy streamed down her temples. In that moment, she was not just the crowned princess, but the most cherished woman in the Seven Kingdoms. In the months that followed, Leyii knew, truly knew, what it was to be loved and cherished. Zor's unwavering devotion was a constant, gentle sun, melting away years of neglect and self-doubt. She blossomed under his affection, her spirit unfurling like a rare desert flower. The whispers of inadequacy that had once haunted her were replaced by a quiet confidence, and she basked in the profound and steadfast love of her husband, the crown prince. Did Leyii and Zor's journey from the lonely farm to the royal palace capture your heart? We certainly hope so. If you were swept away by this tale of love and transformation, please take a moment to like this story. Share it with someone who needs a little magic in their life. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell to join our community. P.S. Now that Leyii is queen, her biggest challenges might just be beginning. What royal intrigue awaits? Stay tuned for the next grand adventure.